Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Mike F.
Yo!
Hi everybody, my name's Mike Finnigan. I'm an alcoholic. By the grace of the power I found through the 12 steps and the love and support of people like you, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink since July 19th, 1986. For that, I'm very grateful. I want to thank Stephen for asking me to come out and share with you tonight. I mentioned him because if you don't like what I say, talk to him. Let's see, what else? Oh, welcome to all our new friends. I want to tell you that I don't speak for Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm just a member of AA. I'm not a spokesman. Just in case you don't know that. I know I look like one, but I'm not. And, you know, the third tradition says the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So if you got a desire to stop drinking, you have reached the pinnacle of AA society. And so if I say anything that disturbs you and you're new, well, hell, that'll make me happy. But no, I'm kidding. Just ignore it. It don't mean nothing. You know, you don't have to agree with anything I say. And congratulations to the people that took cakes. It's a testimony to the power and success of Alcoholics Anonymous in lives. When I got here, Stephen gave me a CD of my wife speaking. It's a bad omen. She spoke here last week. I'm here to set shit straight. I remember a couple of, I don't know, last year sometime we went down to the South Bay and spoke at a big event down there for their South Bay Roundup. And we didn't know at the time, but somebody screwed up because they thought they were getting an AA speaker and an Al-Anon speaker. And, I mean, we've both been to Al-Anon, but we're both in AA. And we're not, neither one of us could be really classified as Al-Anons, other than the fact that we try to run each other's lives. So we were a little scared about that, and we said, which one of us is going to be the Al-Anon speaker? And she said, not me. Anyway, we flipped a coin, and she wound up being the Al-Anon speaker. There were some disgruntled Al-Anons in the room. They felt like they were underrepresented. But she said, hey, you know, don't get too smug. If it wasn't for drunks like me, you wouldn't be where you are today. So anyway, I had an interesting conversation with a guy I sponsored just before I came in tonight. He called me, and he's only been sober for about 4 or 5 weeks. He's 51 years old. Guy's made and lost millions of dollars, been to jail, lived in Europe. I mean, he's been all over the place. The first time I got together with him, he spent about 2 hours telling me who he was. And after he was done, I said, well, you're with us now. And anyway, he's doing pretty well, but he said to me, he's been having a couple of tough days because of some family problems, and he said, I think God is testing me. And then I started laughing. And he goes, why are you laughing? And I said, do you really think, I mean, I know you're important. I mean, you know, well, I'll give you that. You're important. But, I mean, what, you think your higher power is some capricious gesture hurling lightning bolts at Nick? You know, that's, hey, let's fuck with Nick, you know. And he says, well, I don't know, man. It's just, you know, he must be testing me. And I said, you'll get over that, you know. The higher power does a lot of things, but I don't think testing's one of them. I always have problems assigning human characteristics to the ineffable, and human ideas and human understandings and human foibles and everything else to that which I do not know, that which I do not understand, that which I cannot hope to ever comprehend with my little tiny human mind. The only thing I know for sure is, like my sponsor told me when I got here, the only thing you need to know about God right now, pal, is you ain't it. You know, and because I was a little concerned, you know, I'm CIA, Catholic, Irish, and alcoholic, and so when I saw that God stuff up there on the wall, I got a little concerned. I said, man, I've said more Hail Marys and Our Fathers than any of you guys put together, and it really didn't help me a lot. He says, well, you may have to say a few more, but because this time your life's on the line, and I came from a nice family. We weren't rich, we weren't, you know, we were actually kind of poor, but we didn't know it. I was the oldest of 3 brothers. Neither one of my parents were alcoholic. I'm not like some of you that had the advantage of that good alcoholic example to get you going. You know, I'm a self-educated drunk. And we had naturally had a few sprinkled around there. I said the name's Finnigan, the other side's Kelly, so we got plenty of drunks sprinkled in there. But we didn't really call them drunks. My family referred to them as colorful people. Colorful, you know. He's a very interesting fella. And but neither one of them drank or used drugs or did anything like that. I was raised right, had plenty of love. I just was a pig. That's the only problem. And I didn't have my first drink until I was about 18 years old, and I went away to school on a basketball scholarship at the University of Kansas, because it was 1,000 miles from my house, and I'd spent most of my teenage years being pretty damned uncomfortable, and I didn't know it. I needed a drink. Needed one pretty bad, didn't know I needed a drink, but I always had to excel at whatever I did, because that way you'd accept me, and that way you wouldn't know I was a coward, because I was usually pretty afraid most of my life. And for whatever reason, I do not know. And I only know this now because of inventory and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We have to look at the past to shape the future. And so I learned a lot about myself after I got here. I didn't know all this stuff then. But anyway, first couple of weeks I was at school, I'm living in a jock dorm there at the University of Kansas with a bunch of football and basketball players. That's not a good place to be if you're a coward. It's not the kind of place I always like to say that after the lights go out, you might say to your roommate, hey, Bill, can I share something with you? I'm feeling kind of vulnerable, you know. I mean, it's just not the kind of thing. I mean, everybody's a tough guy, and but a couple of guys asked me to go drinking with them, and I said, yeah, they were older guys, and went out with them to a grown-up bar in Kansas City. Didn't go to no college bar, and had started drinking beer and shots. And you know, I'll never forget that night, because that was the night I discovered alcohol, and that was the night that my life changed. That was the night, I mean, those guys drank and they started slurring their words and acting funny, but that didn't happen to me. I'd always heard what alcohol was supposed to do to you, but what it didn't really change me. At least I didn't think so, but it sure as hell changed you. And it sure as hell changed the room. I'm the kind of guy, when I walk into a room full of people, at that time, what I saw in the eyes of the people in that room was a look that said, what's that guy doing here? Who's that? Why is he here? But after I had a few drinks, what I saw in the eyes of the people in that bar was a look of love and understanding and joy at my presence. You know, and that was just the men. You know. Now, in the eyes of the women, what I saw was a look of hunger. Hey, you know, alcohol, it's a disease of perception. Alcohol changed me. It changed the way I saw the room. It changed the way I experienced life. It opened up the whole world to a whole different way of experiencing. That's the ultimate exercise of control. When people talk about control, You know, I mean, that's what alcoholism is at bottom, I believe, is an attempt to control. Control not just people, places, situations, but the way I perceive life. I got my magic elixir. I don't have to feel bad. I don't have to be distressed. I don't have to, you know, I mean, this can change it all. All I have to do is take a few drinks and all of a sudden my world changes. I mean, what's more controlling than that? The idea that, and it worked for a long time. That was the beginning of a long journey. I was only 18 and I didn't get here till I was 41. And in the succeeding years, what happened was I dropped out of school, joined a band, started traveling. I'm still a musician. That doesn't matter, except for the fact that it allowed me to see the world and do a lot of things and do what I love. And it also allowed me to associate with people who will help a man get to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, they'll give you a leg up. You know, and they were, booze was always the constant, but they introduced me to Tuinol, Seconal, Demerol, and any other damn thing at all. You know, and marijuana and cocaine and heroin and, you know, and I mean, and I tried it all because I was open-minded. And some of it worked real good and some of it didn't work that good, but booze always worked. And for a coward, when you're going into New York City for the first time, or Dallas, or New Orleans, or Chicago, or any other places that I'd never been, and you're 20 years old, or however it was then, back in my early days, and you're in a place that nobody's ever seen you, and you've never seen them, and you're supposed to perform and deliver the groceries, and you're frightened. But booze could change that. Step up to the bar, a couple big shots of Jack Daniels, man. Looking in that mirror behind that bar saying, "You good-looking son of a bitch." Man, they are gonna love you. What are you afraid of, man? They better be afraid of you. You fixing to drop down with some shit on these people. Yeah, now I'm ready. That's what alcohol did for me. Now, let me tell you, if alcohol did that for them out there, they'd all be here. You know, and I've checked with them because it don't do that for them. It's like a friend of mine said the other night, he was talking about his last drunk on tequila. And then he said, and I don't even like tequila. And he said, but that's the difference between us and them. If they don't like tequila, they don't drink it. He said, shit, I'll drink it if I have to. And I said, you know, and see, we understand. We're laughing because to us that makes sense. You go out there, you go out in the street and tell somebody that and watch them look at you. You'll drink what if you have to? I mean, what, at the point of a gun? I mean, what are you talking about? No, I mean, if I want to get my head up, you know, if I want to get my head up right, I mean, if I have to. It's like me one time, I remember one time at a party, I drank a whole bunch of cream de menthe because it got to be 2 o'clock and the party was over, except I didn't know it. And me and 2 or 3 other hardcores, last gaspers, were hanging around, and all this poor fool had was cream de menthe, the green kind. So we, you know, we went up and drank all that. I got home sometime in the middle of the night, and the next morning my wife, when I woke up, she went, "Ah!" I said, "What's the matter?" She says, "Your lips are green. Your gums are green. Your teeth are green." And you know what else? Everything that came out of me for 2 days was green, too. And so I'm like, you know, I'm like my buddy. I don't like cream de menthe, but I'll drink it if I have to. But my long journey to AA began, like I said, way back then. And after, you know, being in the business, started having a little bit of success and moved to San Francisco first for a while. That's a good place for a budding alcoholic to go in 1970. They had something for me up there, and lived, you know, started having some success, but then a couple of bumps in the road. My alcoholism was already in pretty much full bloom by then. I was drinking every day and using, and I got arrested for conspiracy to distribute cocaine, and I didn't really do it. Honest. I mean, conspiracy, I guess, I knew a guy that knew a guy. That was the conspiracy. And, you know, since I was a musician, we were hanging out with some guys that knew a guy. And they just landed on me because I just happened to be there. And I was looking at 5 to 20 in the federal penitentiary. And now a normal person probably would have stopped and assessed their life and said, what the hell happened here? Why am I in jail? Why am I looking at 5 to 20? But I didn't do that. I blamed them for, and how unfair it all was, and you ought to be looking at these people. And the only choice I had was to either roll over on these guys that knew a guy or else shut up. So I was more afraid of those other people than I was the cops. So I just clammed up. And luckily, at that time, I got probation, 3 years probation. Didn't stop me. My alcoholism was in, full enough bloom for it to tell me, hey, you better be cool. And so I just hunkered down and kept doing what I was doing. My wife and I, of course, by then had been married for several years, and we went along, and things just my disease escalated, her disease escalated. That's the only reason we stayed married. We've been married 36 years, and I think that the last 5 years before we sobered up was pure hell. And if either one of us hadn't been an alcoholic, we wouldn't have stayed together. But since we were alcoholic, we did. And I think that if you think about that, that'll make sense. It's a convenient, anybody that, when you're looking for somebody to blame for what's wrong, they're right there. I don't have to go looking for nobody, her, and vice versa. We've talked about it. And what finally brought me to my knees was we had 2 children by then who were 7 and 4. And my wife took our children, and left me without, I just woke up and they were gone. And that got my attention. And prior to that, there'd been several attempts to modify, never to stop, just to kind of back off, change, all the things that it says in Chapter 3. Switching from scotch to brandy. I switched from Jack Daniel to vodka because vodka doesn't smell, right? Yeah. And why am I having the sweats? Why am I laying in bed in soaked sheets? Why am I... all of those things. Why haven't I been home for 4 days? Why are my children looking at me with those eyes that have to know how I feel right now so they can get their hearts out of their throats? Why? And after my wife left, we went to a marriage counselor who said she couldn't help us because we were both alcoholics, which was a cold bowl of chili, really. What a thing to say to people you don't even know. and hurt our feelings. But my wife made the decision. She was the one in our family that had the guts to do something first. Meanwhile, my mom had joined Al-Anon and had been in Al-Anon for quite a while, and we wondered what the hell happened to her because she turned into a real bitch. At least we thought so. She used to be so kind and loving. Now, it's like a prison warden or something. Whatever I say, she says I'm lying, And she helped, God bless her. When she died, she died 13 years ago, and I happened to be out of town. She was living with my wife and I because she'd had a couple of strokes. She still lived in Ohio, but she always came out here every year and spent Christmas and into the spring with the family and her grandchildren. And she had a couple of strokes and went down quick. But I wasn't there, but there were 15 members of AA and Al-Anon there. And I'll always be grateful for that. But anyway, my wife sobered up, and that's when I made the decision. She went to a treatment center, and while she was gone, I said, well, I'm going to quit drinking. I'll have a nice surprise for her when she gets home. And that's when I became acquainted with powerlessness, because I could not drink. I quit drinking. I'd stop drinking every day and say, I'm not going to drink today. And sometime during the day, something would happen, and the emotional barometer would get through, and the drink would come. And I was drinking against my will. And when I finally gave up on me as the answer to my problems, and I went to a hospital, detoxed. I needed one too, let me tell you, just like the book says. My mind was, as the literature says, befogged. And I'm grateful that I got a chance to do that so I could hear what I needed to hear when I got here instead of rolling around in a seizure. I was fortunate. But as soon as I got there, I mean, when I came out with guys that were helping me right away. I was really fortunate because I had a lot of friends that had come to AA in front of me. And one guy in particular was a guy I'd done a lot of drinking with, and he appointed himself my sponsor. And because I didn't know what a sponsor was, hell. What I knew about alcoholism really was drinks too much. When you said, is there any other alcoholics in the room, the first time I heard that in a meeting, I raised my hand because what that meant to me was drinks too much. I didn't know anything about the disease concept of alcoholism, physical allergy, mental obsession, and all the other things that go along with what alcoholism really is. But how could I? I mean, I didn't know anything except how to get drunk. But this guy told me he was going to be my sponsor, and I said, what's that? And he goes, you just do what I do and go where I go. And I'm going to show you how this deal works. And I was so lucky because not only him, but all of his friends and the guys that I got connected with when I first came to AA were such a blessing for me because they were involved. They were not fans of AA. They were players. They were not on the sidelines applauding. They were in. They were doing it. They were doing panels. They had commitments. They were going to 6-7 meetings a week. They were doing 12-step calls. These guys would call me up at any hour of the day or night when I was in my first 30 days and say, meet me at Sittins in a half an hour. Why? Just be there. They'd pick me up and we'd go somewhere and they'd be talking to some drunk. And then or they'd take me to a panel down on Skid Row, or they'd take me to a meeting somewhere, or they'd drive up to Bakersfield to a meeting, or these guys were doing stuff, or a guy'd take me to a GSR meeting. Almost drank that night. And they got me involved. They volunteered me for commitments right out of the box. Coffee commitment? Yeah, this guy wants it. Literature commitment, Finnigan will do it. And that they got me involved, and my sponsor got me involved in the 12 steps right away. He's the guy that pointed out to me what it said about the 3 legacies of AA, unity, service, and recovery. He said, you're going to need all 3, a guy like you. I think you're going to need them all. It's just like a stool, man. If you ain't got 3 legs, you're probably going to fall over. You need all these. And I remember when I said, well, the meetings are working good. And he said, yeah, but the meetings ain't, he said, that's like going to a PTA meeting and thinking you're going to become a parent. Ain't going to happen, pal. He said, you're going to have to take some action, and get into this. And he pointed out to me what it says in There Is a Solution after it talks about the passengers on the sinking liner and how those of us in the fellowship of AA feel like we've survived certain death and we've all escaped. But it says that's only part of it. It says that we have a solution on which we can absolutely join in brotherly and harmonious action. It says, and that's the great news. That's the great news that this book carries for those who suffer. The solution, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the 12 traditions, how it works and why it works. And these guys taught me about that. And within, by the time I had 10 months sober, some guy asked me to sponsor him. And I said, I don't know if I can do that. I went to my sponsor and said, this guy wants me to sponsor him, what do I do? And he says, well, if he's sick enough to ask you, I don't think you can hurt him. So go ahead and say yeah. And by then I'd already completed. I'd been through the steps. I still had a lot of 9-step work to do, which took me about 5 years to clean up. A lot of financial stuff that took a long time. But I'm free today. Walk a free man. My children are grown. My daughter's 27, my son's 24. Neither one of them live at home. Neither one of them have been to rehab. I'm a fucking success. So far. Anyway, but what's great is they got to be raised after those first few years in an AA house. They got to be raised in a house where if you slammed the door and stomped out, you had to open the door and come back in and say you were sorry and you were going to try not to do that anymore. And where people prayed together. and where we sat at a table together every night when they were growing up and talked about what was going on in their lives, and when my wife and I got to show up for them and do all the things for them that children should have done for them. Just being there, you know, such a gift. Such a gift to actually be a participant in the lives of the people you love instead of an observer. Sometimes, an occasional. I remember I used to think before I quit drinking that I loved my family. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. You know, I didn't know how to demonstrate it. You know, alcoholism took all that away from me. It's a great eraser. You know, it just, everything that matters just wipes it right out. You know, I can be writing, I will not drink, and here comes the eraser right behind it. And I was talking to this guy today that just got a year, another fellow that I have the pleasure of working with, and I sponsor a lot of guys in AA today, and the reason I sponsor them is because I need them. I need every one of them. I loved what Andrea, what was your? Audra, I'm sorry. What you said, on my good days you give me purpose. What was the other part?
My dad makes you remind you when.
Yeah, that's it. Man, that hit me. I'm going to keep that one. You know, in AA, they say you got to give credit the first 3 times, and after that, it's yours. But that, I identify with that. But I need these guys. I sponsor about 25 guys in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it keeps me busier than a one-armed bass player. But I need it, you know. And I need them. I need every one of them, because I'll tell you something. I'm a slow learner and a quick forgetter. You know, and what I teach best is what I need to learn most. You know, and I'm telling you something, I have to stay in that literature, I have to stay in that book, I have to stay in meetings, I have to keep walking. I mean, it's like, I hate to quote Clancy, but I'm going to have to. You know, I hate to quote him, but he said, you know, I don't love him about a sponsee. He said, I don't just love you for who you are, I love you for who I am when I'm with you. You know, and that's the way it works for me, because when I'm with the guys I'm working with, I'm a better man. Because I'm concentrating and thinking about what I'm supposed to be doing and setting a good example and teaching these guys about the wonders of Alcoholics Anonymous and what's available to all of us here if we mean business, if we want to be players and not fans. You know, and that's what it's really all about. That's what it comes down to. I did a 5th step with a guy the other day, and I said to him, you know, you just completed something that not too many people in AA do. And he's new enough to where that shocked him. He said, you're kidding. I said, no, man. I'm sorry. I said, I start working with guys, you know, most of the time they're 2-steppers, you know, like they either that or they just go out drinking, one or the other. This isn't easy, and it says so in the book. I remember my sponsor, when I complained about it, he said, show me where it says you got to like it, you know, and I couldn't find it. I did find where it says almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of pride, and the confession of shortcomings, which the process required for successful consummation. I found that, didn't find where it said I gotta like it. But here's the thing, when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and I came in here, and I was talking about this to a guy the other night too, because he doesn't believe it's gonna work for him. And I said, man, I felt the same way. When I got here, I was so bankrupt in every department of my life. And I saw the 12 steps, and I was put off by the God stuff and all those things, and I thought, and I looked at what it said that I was to do, and I said, that's not gonna help me. I got trouble. I got real problems. That shit's not going to work. You know, but I was so desperate, and because of the hope that I saw from you, and because I saw the recovery in other people in AA, and the smiles on your faces, and the love in your eyes, and the clarity that you showed me, and the honesty that I heard, because of that, I said, well, it's working for them, and that allowed me to take my 2nd step, and I didn't come to believe that a power, I didn't know about no power, but I came to believe that that power had done something for you. And that allowed me to just do it anyway, even though in my heart of hearts I knew, this is just one more damn thing you ain't going to do. You ain't going to finish it. It ain't going to work, but I'll do it anyway. And I remember telling my sponsor that, and he says, I'll tell you what, if it doesn't work, I'll make sure you get plenty of speaking time so you can tell people it don't work, you know. But if you just do it anyway, I think it might. And he was right. So basically, the surrender that I made on my 1st step, when I gave up on me as the answer to my problems, is what gave me the impetus to move forward and open up just enough to do it even though I didn't believe, and then believe just a little bit in you to continue, and then make a decision. My decision was really just to continue with the steps. I didn't know enough about a higher power or what any of that meant. my sponsor said, turn your will and life over to anybody that'll take it, man. It's just, I don't think anybody wants it, really. But turn your thoughts and actions over to something besides you. And that's what I did. And he said, what this really means is that you're going to continue with these steps, and you're going to follow through, and you're going to finish this, and you're going to do it. And I did it. And I continue to do it. AA is an open-ended deal. I mean, nobody graduates. Nobody's out of the woods. We learn. My journey in Alcoholics Anonymous has not been a straight line. It's been more of a winding road. And, I've had plenty of ups and downs. I've had plenty of... But what I've come to realize is what I used to consider bad days are not bad days at all. They're days that I'm not drinking. And I remember my sponsor saying, I was holding forth one time in the meeting talking about mere sobriety is not enough for me. There's change that I have to have, and he went, you don't believe that shit, do you? Yeah, all that's true, but there's going to be days when if all you have is your physical sobriety, and if that ain't enough, you're in a lot of trouble, bud. And there's a lot of days when that is all I have, and it is enough, because it means I got a shot at anything. As long as I have physical sobriety, that means I got a chance to be a better man tomorrow. There's a lot of power in a day well lived. Every day that I can wake up and say my prayers and go out and maybe help somebody, and maybe make amends to somebody that I might have harmed, and do something useful, I can put my head on the pillow that night and think that was a pretty good day. I'll take it. And it makes my past look better, makes my future look better. Power in a day well lived in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks for letting me share.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.